Hey Optimancers, Chris here. Bigby Presents Glory of the Giants has been released, so in this video I'm going to go over the new character creation options in the book. There's not too many, so this shouldn't take too long. So we have some new backgrounds, some new feats, and a new subclass. With the backgrounds, you're going to get a free feat. This is standard now in new releases, and in this case you'll either get the Rune Shaper or Strike of the Giant feat, which are presented in this book. There's not much more to say about backgrounds, so I'm going to start with the feats and then look at the subclass. So starting with Rune Shaper, this feat is somewhat reminiscent of Magic Initiate or Strixhaven Initiate. Basically, you'll get the Comprehend Languages spell as a known spell, and you're going to be able to cast it once per long rest without expending a spell slot. Then you'll get one additional spell known from a curated list, and you can cast that once per long rest without expending a spell slot. You can change your selection when you gain a level, and you're going to get an additional selection at levels 9 and 17. So eventually, you'll have 3 selected first level spells. So here's the list, and there's some decent spells here. Goodberry is probably the strongest option here, but spells like Sanctuary, Longstrider, Command, and Tangle, these are fairly good first level spells. The top first level spells like Shield, Silvery Barbs, or Find Familiar are not here, and as an included feat with a background, I think this feat is fine. But this isn't a feat I'm going to use like my 4th level feat on. There's no way. To qualify for this feat, you need to either get it with the rune carver background or you need to be a spellcaster. The next feat is Strike of the Giants, which you can also get with your background. This is also a feat I just would not consider unless it was provided for free with my background. When you select the feat, you choose one of 6 options, all corresponding to one of the main giant types. Qualifying for this feat requires one of the backgrounds here, or a martial weapon proficiency. And depending on your selection, you can add an additional effect to a melee weapon attack or a ranged attack with a thrown weapon. And you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, regaining your uses on a long rest. And for me, that's the nail in the coffin here, because these are additional effects that are fairly minor, considering how limited they are. Cloud Strike adds a d4 thunder damage, and the target makes a wisdom save, or you become invisible to them till the start of your next turn, or earlier if you cast a spell or make an attack. Fire Strike adds a d10 fire damage, and that's it. Frost Strike adds a d6 cold damage, and the creature makes a constitution saving throw, or has its speed reduced to 0 until your next turn. Hill Strike adds a d6 to the weapon's damage, and the creature makes a strength saving throw, or is prone. Stone Strike adds a d6 force damage, and the creature makes a strength save or is pushed 10 feet. And Storm Strike adds a d6 lightning damage, and the target makes a constitution save or has disadvantage on attacks until your next turn. In all cases, the save DC is based on your strength or constitution, whichever is higher. And honestly, this feat would be pretty good if you had more uses, but as is, I would consider it on the weaker side. That said, if you want any of the other feats in this book, this feat is going to be a prerequisite. So for the rest of the feats, they all have a few things in common. They require your characters at least 4th level in order to take them. You need the Strike of the Giants feat and must have selected the corresponding giant type as your selection for that feat. And these are all half feats, allowing you to raise your strength or constitution by 1, or either wisdom or charisma depending on the feat. So when it comes to half feats, my expectations for the features they provide is basically half of what I'd expect from a full feat. And for the most part, I think these feats deliver fairly decent features considering their half feats. The first is Ember of the Fire Giant. This gives your character permanent resistance to fire damage, not bad, and Searing Ignition. So Searing Ignition is usable proficiency bonus times per long rest, and replaces an attack from the attack action on your turn. When you use it, any enemies within 15 feet of you must make a dexterity saving throw, taking a d8 plus your proficiency bonus fire damage on a failed saving throw, plus they're blinded until the start of your next turn. If they make the save, they take half the damage and aren't blinded. So, if you're a weapon-using character, then I think this is okay. I probably wouldn't even consider it against a single target because the weapon attack it replaces would probably be better, but if we can get a lot of targets, then that's another story. Where this feat would be more attractive is a character who maybe doesn't have a lot of area of effect options, or maybe any area of effect options. And you'll definitely want extra attack if you take this feat, so it's not eating up your entire action. And as a half feat, I think it's solid. Next is Fury of the Frost Giant. So now you get resistance to cold damage, and you get Frigid Retaliation. Again, this is proficiency bonus times per long rest. So with this one, when you're hit with an attack that deals damage, you can use your reaction to force them to make a Constitution saving throw. If they fail, they take a d8 plus your proficiency bonus in cold damage, and they have their speed reduced to 0. So obviously this isn't a whole lot of damage, and the Constitution saving throw isn't ideal. But you know what? If the attack came from a flying creature without hover, this is going to drop them out of the sky because of 0 speed, and there's probably other cases where imposing a speed of 0 will be useful. Again, as a half feat, and including the cold damage resistance, overall I think this is decent. Guile of the Cloud Giant doesn't give you a permanent damage type resistance, it gives you Cloudy Escape. Usable, you guessed it, proficiency bonus times. It's a reaction you take when you're hit with an attack roll, and you get resistance to the damage of that attack and teleport 30 feet to a space you can see. So just be aware, this is not like Absorb Elements, where the resistance applies to things like Fireballs or Dragon's Breath, and lasts until your next turn. In this case, it needs to be damage from an attack, as in they rolled a d20 in order to hit you. And once they hit you, then you use this, and the resistance is just against that one attack. But this will apply to any damage type, so it is a reaction that will mitigate those big damage rolls, as well as mitigate critical hits. So although this one only includes one limited use feature, again I think for a half feat, it's not bad at all. Keeness of the Stone Giant gives you Dark Vision 60 feet, or increases your existing Dark Vision by 60 feet, and you get Stone Throw, usable proficiency bonus times. Use a bonus action and throw a rock up to 60 feet. You make a ranged spell attack, and if you hit, the target takes a d10 force damage and makes a strength saving throw or falls prone. So Stone Throw is not delivering much damage at all. It's actually doing less damage than the previous feats we've gone over. And it's debatable whether proning a creature with a ranged attack is even advantageous. I mean, if the plan is to knock them prone, then close and make melee attacks, or to knock them prone and then run away to build more distance between you and an enemy, well then it's going to be okay. This could also be a way to get Dark Vision on your character if you need it. So I think this is okay for a half feat, but just okay. Now Soul of the Storm Giant is another matter. You get no permanent benefit, just Maelstrom Aura, usable proficiency bonus times. It's a bonus action and you create a 10-foot aura that lasts until the start of your next turn. While it's active, you have resistance to lightning and thunder damage, attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and if another creature starts its turn in your aura, you can force them to make a strength saving throw, and if they fail, their speed is halved until its next turn. And this one, I consider on the weak side. The damage resistances are going to be harder to apply, because you need to have used your bonus action to set this up on your turn right before you took the damage. That's way harder to set up than a reaction. Or of course, the permanent resistances some of these other feats provide. And really, it's just a combination that the duration here is really low, just one round, the uses are so limited, and that's all you get. So I'd consider this the weakest of the 4th level feats here. I like defensive features, which this mainly is, but I think this needs more uses, or a longer duration. Our last feat is Vigor of the Hill Giant, and there's no proficiency bonus per long rest feature here. We get Bulwark and Iron Stomach. Bulwark is interesting. It provides you a reaction that prevents an effect that would move you against your will or knock you prone. I like that. I wish there were more features in the game like this. And Iron Stomach provides you some extra healing when you expend hit dice as part of a short rest. The amount is your Constitution modifier plus your proficiency bonus, and it says you need to eat some food as part of the rest. This one, in my opinion, is probably the feat here that I would be most inclined to take. Bulwark is pretty good, and Iron Stomach is okay. So for a half feat, I think this is a pretty good feat. So now our subclass, Path of the Giant, which is a subclass for Barbarians. So if you've played Barbarians before, you will know that their subclass features tend to only apply when you're raging, and this is the case here for pretty much all their features except for one ribbon feature at level 3. So you know your own table better than I do. So just be aware that if you find your Barbarian runs out of rages, if you are Path of the Giant, essentially you'll be subclassless. At 3rd level, you're going to get 2 features. The first is a ribbon feature, Giant's Power. You get the Giant language, or another language if you already have Giant, and you get either the Druidcraft or Thaumaturgy cantrip with Wisdom as your spellcasting ability, which doesn't matter, since neither of these cantrips involve a saving throw or an attack roll. So these are both flavor cantrips that don't really have any substantial mechanical uses, but if you want your voice to boom, or you want to make a flower blossom, those kinds of things, these cantrips give you those kinds of flavorful effects. And like I said, this is a ribbon feature. The main 3rd level feature is Giant's Havoc. This is only active when you're raging, and there's 2 parts to it. The first is Crushing Throw. You add your rage damage bonus to thrown weapons using Strength. So that's like plus 2 damage until you get to higher levels in Barbarian. This isn't going to make thrown weapons viable, but if you play Barbarians, you'll know that sometimes you throw a weapon just to make an attack so you maintain your rage. Well, now that attack is going to do a couple more points of damage. Not great, honestly, but it's fine. One interesting note here is that in the 2024 Player's Handbook playtest, at least currently, all Barbarians already add their rage damage bonus to thrown weapon attacks, so it is entirely possible Crushing Throw will become a redundant feature once the new Player's Handbook is published. I mean, I assume you won't add your rage damage bonus twice, because normally with bonuses like the rage damage bonus, you either add it or you don't, but I guess we'll see. Either way, it's a minor feature. The main feature is Giant Stature, which makes you large-sized when you're raging, and your reach increases by 5 feet. So, if you've played a Rune Knight, you should already be aware of some of the benefits of being large-sized. And I think Giant Smite of the Rune Knight is the obvious feature to compare this to. Giant Smite has a comparable number of uses, comparable duration, and also makes you large-sized. In this case, you get a reach bonus, and with Giant Smite you get a once per turn d6 damage bonus. Personally, I would take the reach bonus, but a Rune Knight also gets 2 runes at 3rd level, which are definitely better than Crushing Throw and Giant's Power. So compared to the other subclass that gives you the ability to become large, I'd say that at least at 3rd level, this is the weaker of the 2. However, if I compare this to other Barbarian subclasses, it's another story. I think this compares fairly well. Elemental Cleaver is gained at 6th level, again, only active while you're raging. You choose a weapon you're holding, and then you choose either Acid, Cold, Fire, Thunder, or Lightning damage. That weapon now delivers that damage type, plus a bonus d6 damage. This isn't once per turn damage, this applies to every attack you make. The weapon also gains a thrown property with a 20-foot short range and 60-foot long range, and when you throw it, it automatically reappears in your hand after the attack. You're the only one who gains these benefits with the weapon, and you can use your bonus action to switch out the damage type. And this feature, I'd say, is solid. The flexible damage type means you should be able to find a damage type that isn't resisted, and those d6s, they're just going to add up. However, if you're thinking that giving your halberd the thrown property suddenly makes thrown weapon fighting a viable option for barbarians, well, not really. Feats like Great Weapon Master only apply to melee attacks, and you can't recklessly attack with a thrown weapon. I mean, unless you're playing with the playtest, then thrown weapons are much better. But with the current rules, thrown weapons still not going to be a great option for you. But again, barbarians once in a while need to throw a weapon, and now you don't need to juggle your weapons around in order to throw your weapon that you're holding. And the d6s are going to add up, so I think this is a good feature. Now the one everyone's been talking about, Mighty Impel. Again, this is just while you're raging, but Mighty Impel gives you a pretty cool bonus action, and you don't need to track uses. You use the bonus action, then you choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach, and then you throw them up to 30 feet. If they're willing, they just go, and if they aren't, they can avoid being thrown with a strength saving throw. If you throw them into the air, yes, they will fall, take damage, and become prone. So you throw an enemy 30 feet up with your bonus action, they take 3d6 falling damage, and land prone in front of you, and now you don't need to reckless attack to gain advantage. Moving allies this way is also going to be useful. I mean, flavor-wise, this is unique, but mechanically, this is just another method of force movement. Regardless of your group, there is so much force movement in the game now, probably somebody's using it. The standouts here, though, are the direction and the distance. Usually with force movement, we're talking about 5 or 10 feet, sometimes 15, and usually we're talking about fixed directions. Here we have any direction and 30 feet of force movement. That's very impressive. And force movement is good. Pull your allies out of grapples or web spells, throw your enemies into walls of fire or spirit guardians. If you play D&D, you know force movement is good already, and this is a good feature because this is really good force movement. Also, note that you choose an enemy within your reach, and your reach increased by 5 feet at 3rd level. If you have a reach weapon, or you're a bugbear, it's going to be further than that. And once again, I want to make a comparison to other subclasses. So, if you go through every single barbarian subclass, you will notice something at 10th level. I mean, go pick a random barbarian subclass right now. Look at their 10th level feature. It's not very good, is it? I don't know why every single barbarian subclass has a letdown feature at level 10, but they do. But not anymore. This is a great 10th level feature. And at 14th level, you'll get Demiurgic Colossus, and basically, you get bigger. You can now choose to become huge-sized, but whether you do or not, your increased reach goes from 5 to 10 feet, your weapon's damage bonus goes from a d6 to 2d6, and you can now use your force movement feature on large-sized creatures. So this basically scales your primary level 3, level 6, and level 10 subclass features, and in all cases with substantial scaling benefits. So this is very good at 14th level. And so to sum up, this is a good barbarian subclass. One of the best, really, up there with Totem Warrior and Zealot. Arguably better, depending on the level. And those are the new character creation options from Bigby's. Just thought I'd make you aware of them. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.